Hello, today I'm back with the album ranking. This time we'll be ranking the albums from the band Soulfly. And this band was actually my introduction to Max Cavalera. I know for many people Sepultura was their introduction to Max, but I discovered Soulfly first and then Sepultura. Then of course I would go on to check out his other bands like Nail Bomb and Cavalera Conspiracy. And he also has other projects too, of course, like Go Ahead and Die and some others. But yeah, Soulfly was actually the last band that I saw live. I saw them live not too long ago at the Dayton Factory, and that was definitely a really great show. I was at the front. But yeah, I did also review their last album, their most recent album, Shama, here on the channel. So if you want to hear me go deeper into that album, definitely check out my review for Shama after this video right here. But yeah, for this ranking, we'll be going from worst to best. Keep in mind, it's just my personal ranking. You don't have to agree with it, but feel free to let me know your ranking in the comment section below. So at the bottom, my bottom two can kind of go back and forth for me, but to me, Soulfly has no bad albums, but I think they do have maybe a couple or a few albums I think are kind of middle of the road, but not bad. But at the bottom, I'm going with Omen. Rise of the Fallen, pretty good song. To me, easily the best song on here, but a lot of this album for me is kind of take it or leave it for me personally. But yeah, not a bad album, but for me, it's always been one of my least favorites. For me, one of their more unremarkable albums. But next in my ranking, we'll be going to Savages. An album that I wish would have been better, would have been better, especially with Terry Date producing. So yeah, Terry Date produced this album, definitely a legendary producer when it comes to the world of metal. He's worked with many bands that I enjoy, such as Unearth, Deftones, and of course Pantera being an obvious one. But yeah, with Terry Date, you think this would have been better, but for me, it ended up being one of their weaker albums in my opinion, and all these years later, I still think it's one of their weakest. But yeah, it does have its moments though, like Bloodshed. I think that's a solid way to open up the album, but for me, one of their weaker albums though. But just like with Omen, has its moments though. But next we have Archangel. This is another album that for me, kind of middle of the road, but to me, a step up from the two albums before it, but not by much though. I mean, I do like We Sold Our Souls to Metal. I do like Sodomites, but for me, one of their more unremarkable releases. I think, to me, even when it comes to the more recent stuff, I feel like they've done better than this. But still, an alright album, though. But again, for me, one of their weaker albums. Not as memorable as the albums that I have above it. But next in my ranking, we'll be moving to Ritual. To me, a step up from the album that came before it. With that said, I do think this is one of those albums where you have a strong first half, but a somewhat weaker, or at least not as memorable second half. But the second half does have its moments like Blood on the Street and Bite the Bullet, which I really dig the riffs or the guitar work in that song. But some of my favorites on here, I really like Dead Behind the Eyes. The Summoning's also pretty good, and of course the title track Ritual is definitely one of the best songs on here too. But yeah, solid album from Soulfly. But now we're moving to an album that I feel is somewhat underrated in their discography, and that album is Conquer. This album actually has one of my favorite Soulfly songs, that song being Unleash. Really dig that song. I do also like the singer that's featured in that song. I'm currently blanking on his name at the moment, but either way, I dig the feature in that song. But Bloodfire War Hate, maybe one of their best album openers, I'd say. We have other really great songs on here like Paranoia and Warmageddon. I also like the Sabbath influence that you hear and Touching the Void. Kind of like with Ritual, I think this is another album where you have a strong first half, but a somewhat weaker, or at least not as memorable second half. But again, the second half does have its moments like Fall of the Sycophants, if I pronounced that correctly, and of course Touching the Void. But yeah, another solid album for Soulfly. Not top shelf Soulfly, but still solid though. But next in my ranking, we'll be moving to Totem. And this is the long box that's limited to 500 copies. So yeah, definitely really cool to have. Totem, solid album. When it comes to their more recent albums, I really think this is one of the stronger ones. Scouring the Violet has to be one of my favorite songs on there, and also one of my favorites when it comes to their modern stuff in general. I mean, you got John Tardy from Obituary in that song, and Obituary is another band that I love. That song might be my favorite song on the album, but you have other pretty good songs on here like Filth Upon Filth, which, if I remember correctly, when I saw them live for the first time, they played that song, and that song definitely goes hard live. You move towards the deeper cuts, I really like Rotten Pain. Title track's also solid, but yeah, another good Soulfly album. That it's more towards the middle of the pack for me when it comes to ranking their albums. But now we're moving to another album in their discography that I feel is somewhat kind of underrated, or at least not talked about as much as some of their other albums. That album is Enslaved. When it came to the albums that came out after Dark Ages, I've always felt like this album was the best one until more recently, and we'll get to that one soon. But yeah, Enslaved, to me, a pretty good album. For me, it deserves a bit more love, or at least more attention. But I've always really liked World Scum. That's maybe one of my favorite Soulfly songs. That song is definitely pretty heavy and pretty awesome. Some other standouts for me are Plata o Plomo, another song that I feel is pretty underrated in their discography. I also like Redemption of Man by God, which, if I remember correctly, Dez from Cold Chamber and Devil Driver is on that track. If I remember correctly, hopefully I'm thinking of the right song, so I'm not embarrassing myself. But either way, that's another standout to me in the album. Gladiator is also pretty good. But yeah, pretty good Soulfly album. Kind of underrated, but I personally dig it. But now we're moving to their latest album, Shama. Really impressed with this album when it came out, and this will probably end up in my end of year list of my favorite albums of the year. I mean, really digging this album a lot still. I mean, Storm the Gates to me is one of their best singles, especially when it comes to their more recent stuff. But my favorite on this album has to be No Pain Equals No Power, which, I mean, you got Dino from Fear Factory in that song, so that's an automatic win for me. And yeah, that song just kicks so much ass. I love that song. And Gina is also pretty good. The only problem is I feel like it's too short. I mean, with that song, you have Michael from Arch Enemy. I mean, that song to me, oh man, I wish it was longer, but because with what you get in that song, pretty killer stuff, especially when it comes to the guitar department. No surprise, I mean, you got Michael Ammon from Arch Enemy, really killer guitar player. Definitely one of those guitar players where once you immediately hear some riffs from him, you immediately know that it's him. Favela Dystopia cranks up some speed a little bit. That's probably one of the heaviest songs on the album, and also one of my favorites too. The title track, Shama, to me is maybe one of their best album closers, if I'm being honest. That's another pretty strong way to close off the album. Yeah, Shama, pretty good album. Definitely, most likely going to end up being one of my favorite albums of the year. But next, in my ranking, an album that I feel is pretty underrated and to me deserves more love. That is their third album, 3. I know some people would probably have this lower, but personally, I don't get that. I mean, I think this album's actually pretty good. I mean, you have, to me, maybe probably one of their best singles, or at least one of my favorite singles, that song being Seek and Strike, which they did perform when I saw them live more recently. Downstroy is also pretty good. They played that song the first time I saw them. That's probably one of their best album openers, in my opinion. But you get some really good deep cuts in this album, like Interfaith and One, and Tree of Pain. Tree of Pain has to be one of their most underrated songs. I really dig the female vocals in that song. That song kind of has different sections, or multiple sections, and structurally, and personally, I dig it. A song that to me deserves more attention, but yeah. 3, pretty good album. But next in my ranking, one of the fan favorites in the discography, we have Prophecy. Really great album, definitely one of their best. I mean, you have one of their best album openers on here with Prophecy, one of their best title tracks too, of course. We have other really great songs on here. Some of the band's best deep cuts, in my opinion, are on here too, like Living Sacrifice, and I Believe. That song has to be one of their most underrated songs. I really like that song a lot. Mars is also pretty good too. I also like their cover of In the Meantime, originally by Helmet. Helmet's another band that I saw live not too long ago, and I got to meet them too, and Paige signed some stuff for me too. But yeah, their cover of Meantime, to me, pretty good and kind of underrated. You also have Terry Date on this album, who mixed the album, if I remember correctly, and I think he did a pretty good job on here. But yeah, Prophecy, definitely one of the band's best. The next in my ranking, we'll be going to Dark Ages, which is definitely one of their darker albums, or maybe their darkest. And I really dig this album a lot too. Also mixed by Terry Date, I believe, and yeah, you definitely get some of the band's best work on here, in my opinion. Songs like Frontlines, Bleak. I really like Babylon. I and I is kind of an underrated song. I really like that one. Riot Starter's also pretty good. Inner Spirit. I mean, there's so many great songs off of here. This to me is one of their strongest. Really good stuff. But next in my ranking, at the number 2 spot, we have their debut album, Soulfly, self-titled. I know some people would probably put this at the top, but for me, it lands at the number 2 spot. Still one of their best. I mean, they have Eye for an Eye, which is still a live staple for them, and for good reason. Definitely one of their best album openers, and also one of their best songs. You get some of their best album, deep cuts, in my opinion, on this album too, like No Hope Equals No Fear and Fire. I really like Boomba, if I pronounced that correctly. I really like Bleed featuring Fred Durst. I am a Limp Bizkit fan, and I do like his inclusion in that song. First Commandment's also solid, which, if I remember correctly, has Chino from Deftones. Deftones being one of my favorite bands. So yeah, definitely top shelf Soulfly for me. Along with my number 1, which is their second album, Primitive. Love Primitive. Love this album. Maybe one of my favorite metal albums of the year 2000. I mean, there's so many great songs off of here, like Back to the Primitive, which is, of course, one of my favorite songs from them, and also one of their best album openers. You even get some pretty good deep cuts in the album too, like Bring It and The Prophet. And I also like Terrorist featuring Tom Araya from Slayer. I mean, you can't go wrong there. Sun Song has to be one of their most underrated songs, featuring Sean Lennon. If I remember correctly, I really like that song. Fly High is another song off of here that I feel is pretty underrated. I really dig the female vocals in that song. And then, of course, you also have Jump the Fuck Up, which has Corey Taylor from Slipknot and Stone Sour. I really like that song a lot. That's another song that I feel is one of their best. I also like Pain, of course, which features Chino from Deftones. I mean, you just can't go wrong with this album. I mean, yeah, this one has to be at the top for me. Love Primitive. But yeah, that is my ranking of the Soulfly albums. Let me know your thoughts on my ranking in the comment section below. And of course, let me know your ranking of the Soulfly albums from worst to best in the comment section below too. Let me know if you've seen this band live and all that good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and a like, subscribe. Have a nice day and take care.